So leveraging the power of DWG inside of Inventor LT, we can now go ahead and document not only any features that we created on this model, but any views that we need for manufacturing. Now, again, this is a fairly complex model, and from a 2D user, think of all the detail they would not put in these views, all of the fillets, some of the hidden geometry, and certainly not an isometric view. Inside of Inventor LT's Drawing Manager, we're able to create a very detailed and very complex DWG very quickly and very easily off of our 3D model. So once we place the views where we find appropriate, now we can start adding any annotations that we want. You'll notice that cosmetic threads have been added to our tapped holes that we made in our 3D design environment. Now let's automate the creation of center lines and center marks on any view that we find appropriate. So you'll see it'll automatically place those center lines and center marks into our views. And then from here we can annotate it with things like hole callouts and dimensions. So here we'll place our hole callout, and we can have Inventor LT's Drawing Manager automatically place the quantity of holes as well. So it automatically recognizes similar holes on geometry or on faces. So now we're documenting these tapped holes that we put on our imported model, so we can actually manufacture this or machine these particular geometries. And again, we could add any additional dimensions that we wanted inside of this Drawing Manager. For sake of time, I'll just place a few on here. And again, I just like to show off some of the complex views we can create, like a color isometric view. That again, an isometric view in general probably won't be done inside of a 2D design environment, but it's certainly not a color one. So let me finish making some center marks, and then let's maybe add a couple dimensions. Now maybe we start talking about any additional views that we could create in our Drawing Manager design environment that a 2D user is not going to be used to doing. We've done all the basic dimensions here. Now let's talk about complex views. We could do like a broken out section view. So let me sketch the shape that I want so I can actually see maybe a side profile of one of those tapped holes I put in the top of my engine here. So I'll simply sketch a profile, do a breakout, and define it to a hole or the depth inside of another view inside of my Inventor DWG. So let's take a look at maybe my top view, define it based on the appropriate hole, and it'll cut to the center of that hole inside of my right view. Now, from there we could add a detail view perhaps. So again, what's important to leverage or to show the existing 2D user is not only can we create DWGs, but we can create detail and feature-rich DWGs, views and detail that they typically wouldn't show, not because they don't want to, but because they haven't had the opportunity to with their current design tools. And with Inventor LT's Drawing Manager environment, these are very easy operations to do without adding any additional overhead. So the value to a machine shop or a manufacturing environment is very, very nice and very, very important from a 3D design standpoint. Now what if we want to communicate this design a little bit more than just to manufacturing? Maybe we want to do a little more communication back to the customer, or perhaps even, and again let me save this off as just a standard DWG file. But now we want to communicate this. Now DWG is a great way to communicate with a variety of different users and customers, upstream and downstream. What about people that aren't necessarily CAD savvy? Well, everybody has, I say everybody, but most people have access to these DWGs. So here you'll see I'm going to take AutoCAD LT and actually open up this DWG file that I created inside of Inventor LT. So anybody that has any AutoCAD based product inside of Paperspace is going to be able to access this as a DWG file. And you can see the communication just via DWG is going to be critical, and it's going to be huge to any manufacturing environment. Now, that's very important and very powerful, and I think that needs to be leveraged. But another thing we're going to talk about, as I had mentioned earlier, is how do we share this outside of just engineering and manufacturing? Maybe we want to communicate this with sales and marketing, communicate it back to the customer saying these are the tapped holes we placed in the model. Well, one thing we can do is define an actual material, pull out properties, maybe communicate that back with the customer. This is what the actual weight of your part will be. Maybe we want to use that internally for costing information or to update a quote for our customer. But this gives us, our weight, our center of gravity, very important information that we can leverage that a 2D user is not going to have exposure to. But also we can leverage environments like Inventor Studio, where I can do a photorealistic rendering of this model and begin to share that. So I can, again, choose different materials, different ways that reflection, and just different ways to represent this model in a realistic environment. For sake of time, I'll just go through a few of these. And now maybe we say, well, how do I want to define how the lighting style is going to be? How do I want to define how this will be presented? And as I render this, as we'll see in a little bit, now I can start sharing these image files with maybe non-engineering type of folks to really sell my design and sell my idea, to really streamline the communication with people. So here you can see how my lighting is being applied to the model, all of your standard rendering options, how shadows are going to be viewed. And you can do this very quickly and very easily inside of Inventor LT using Inventor Studio's rendering environment. So once we have our different scenes and lightings applied, you'll see here that I can define a ground plane. I can offset that ground plane appropriately so it's actually below the model. And we're able to do this very visually. So even if you're not like a rendering expert, we give, Inventor Studio gives you all the tools to create powerful and descriptive imagery of your components and of your designs in this 3D design tool. So once we have our floor established, now we want to maybe go through and just see what this is going to look like. Now, if I want to make it look even more realistic, let's do a nice perspective view, maybe give it a nice orientation, go back to our Inventor Studio, and let's just take a quick look at the rendering of this. I'm just going to take default options, and you see it looks okay, but it doesn't really look realistic, or doesn't really pop. This is where we can start choosing the options that we were defining earlier. So defining what type of lighting style we want. Pleasant looks good. Pleasant's always a good thing. Choose our ground plane, our type of real rendering. And now you'll see we get a very nice, very powerful image. So maybe we want to zoom in a little bit more, get a closer imagery. And you can see how quickly and easily we can do multiple renderings of this file. Now once we get something we want, we can save this off as a JPEG or a bitmap and really start communicating this design outside of just engineering. We can also do different types of renderings, maybe for instruction manuals or catalogs. So you'll see the different tools available inside of Inventor LT's Inventor Studio environment to help really communicate your design.